Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory. Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. Well, Alleluia, Alleluia, He is risen. Happy Easter. Here we are on the day after Easter, everybody. We made it. How exciting. Everything's all white and bright and pretty and shiny and clean as a whistle. It's beautiful, beautiful time of year. It's just the most amazing time of the whole Catholic liturgical calendar year. No, that's not what I was saying. It's the most beautiful time of our year as Catholics, I believe, and followers of Christ. And so, yay. Before we get into this episode about the resurrection, I have a few things to say. Here we go. Please help support the Fresh Catholic ministry. We need you to please help our mission of drawing people to Christ and back to the church. In order to keep this podcast going with production costs and equipment we need to purchase to take this to the next level, please, we need your financial support. I'd like to say we just have buckets of money sitting around here and we can do whatever we want, but that's not true. So please help where you can and when you can. Please go to our website, freshcatholic.com, to not only check it out, Simon has done a beautiful job creating that website, but to see ways to help support us. You could become a Patreon. There's an icon at the bottom left corner of all the pages. Click and support. Become an advertiser or sponsor, or invite me to do a speaking event for your group. Use the Contact Us section of the website. Shop at our online store. There's exclusive items. Not all of them have the Fresh Catholic logo, but definitely are faith-based. There's great gifts for Mother's Day and Father's Day because those things are coming up hot. So there is even things on there for your person graduating, or there could be wedding gifts on there because June's coming, big wedding month. Purchase Fresh Catholic coffee. There are 17 flavors, and when you order, they're roasted and shipped the same day. Just click and order. The key to this website I've found is scroll around the website, because if you just are on one page, you're only going to see one thing. Scroll down and there's so many things to see. There's also socks that you can buy from Sock Religious. So please check it all out. And last but not least, please listen, rate, review, and share my weekly podcast and Fresh Catholic Daily, the daily readings that I do. So those are for you who can't come to daily Mass. Please listen in the car on your way to school and work, or on your walk, or while you're cleaning, or whatever. Anyway, thank you. And now, welcome, Simon Balderas.
Hello.
Hello. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Yay.
It's time, 50 days. Here we go. We made it through Lent.
It was a good one.
It was a good one.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we added to my repertoire, at least, was you introduced me to Jesus of Nazareth, the film. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Jesus
Okay.
of Nazareth.
Yes. Very long.
Very long, 6 hours long.
6 hours. So, that being said,
Uh-huh.
we made a commitment that we would watch it during Holy Week.
Yeah.
And then, of course, end with Passion of the Christ,
Mhm.
with me curled up in a ball, a little sloppy mess ball. But that was a really beautiful film. I know some people have a problem with it because Jesus is very blue-eyed,
Mm.
but I looked past that. I just thought it was an exquisite film.
Yeah. I mean, I love Zeffirelli's. If your audience doesn't know, we watched Brother, Son, Sister Moon, the story of St. Francis, which is also directed by Zeffirelli. Stylistically, it was very, very similar. I do think that Zeffirelli took some liberties in interpreting. They say it's an interpretation because it's not a word for word version of the Bible of Jesus's life. It's a interpretation of what it might have been like, but it's very cool. It's very thought provoking, just like Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon is. And I love the way it's filmed.
Yeah, it was absolutely beautifully filmed. And I have to say, Christian movies aren't typically very well made. Sorry out there if you have made those movies, but they're just not well made.
Mhm.
That's why Passion of the Christ really stands out, because it's so amazingly shot. But this movie, especially for the time it was filmed, absolutely beautiful. And it's from the beginning of Jesus's life and starts with Mary. Beautiful, beautiful film. I was so impressed. And I think that's going to be my new addition every year to my Lenten or my Holy Week tradition. So what we did, because Jesus of Nazareth is 6 hours long, we did 2 hours on Sunday night of Palm Sunday, and then an hour a night, and then ending, like I say, on Good Friday with Passion of the Christ. So anyway, enough about that. But I just think, I'm super hungry for religion-based films.
Right.
And I just don't think they're well made, and they're not enjoyable to watch.
Mm.
And that to me is very sad, because I do know, since we're in the film business, or formerly in the film business, that we know that this type of topic is kind of shied away from, especially now.
Right.
So back in the day, I think, they made the 10 Commandments. They made this. I think that they were made, but nowadays, I don't think that things are as good quality.
Well, they had a different approach to the craft of filmmaking. I mean, it was shot on film. The process of shooting that film was just like any other film at that time, required a very huge budget. Now you can make a lot of stuff for fairly inexpensively. And I think some stuff is okay. I think The Chosen is okay. It's also a big interpretation, but I think it's a good choice for somebody that wants to see and experience the Gospels from a different perspective. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How they did that. But you're right. It definitely, if you had to compare The Chosen to Jesus of Nazareth, it's pretty hard to compare aesthetically.
Right. Anyway, so that's enough about that. But I just wanted to bring that up because like I say, I'm always hungry for anything that has to do with Jesus. I can't get enough. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy when there's something else I can have visually, because I really need that. And I really appreciate you introducing me to that, mm-hmm. and us taking that on. So anyway, we've had, the resurrection.
Yeah.
So Jesus is back, baby.
Yeah.
I would like to start by reading the version of the resurrection from the Gospel of Matthew. Okay. So I'm sure we've all heard this, but, this is my podcast, so I want to read it because I just think it's important. Okay. The resurrection of Jesus. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven, approached, rolled back the stone, and sat upon it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing as white as snow. The guards were shaken with fear of him, and became like dead men. Then the angel said to the women in reply, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are seeking Jesus, the crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead, and he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you." Then they went away quickly from the tomb, fearful yet overjoyed, and ran to announce this to his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them on their way and greeted them. They approached, embraced his feet, and did him homage. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." While they were going, some of the guards went into the city and told the chief priests all that had happened. They assembled with the elders and took counsel. Then they gave a large sum of money to the soldiers, telling them, "You are to say, 'His disciples came by night and stole him while we were asleep.' And if this gets to the ears of the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." The soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed, and this story has circulated among the Jews to the present day. The 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had ordered them. When they saw him, they worshipped, but they doubted. Then Jesus approached and said to them, "All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always until the end of the age."
Wow. Yeah, I love the fact that the angels kind of softened the blow because I think they were really freaked out when they saw that there was an empty tomb. They didn't know what was going on. And I think that it was just hard for them to process what actually was taking place, this supernatural event. I mean, they just saw Christ just get obliterated and hung on the cross and die in the most horrific way. And now everything's okay.
I know.
So it's kind of unbelievable and hard, for our small little minds to wrap around this idea that he's no longer in the grave. And I think it just freaked him out. So I think that these angels came and because they said, "Don't be afraid, calm down. This is what's going on." They softened the blow, really.
And you notice throughout the Bible, that's what happens with the angels, is they come and they kind of softly, I think they're afraid. The people are always, in the Bible, it says they're afraid of the angels.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, again, it's something miraculous and they can't even wrap their mind around it.
Right.
They're going, what is this? What is happening?
Yeah.
Because again, very simple times back then.
Uh-huh.
Simple people, simple minds.
Right.
Everything was not like this. It's not like today where things can be manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, it was what it was.
Yeah, what you see is what you get.
Right.
Or what you got.
Yeah. So I feel like when the angel came to Mary, I think obviously she was a young girl. That was very jarring to her.
Mm-hmm.
When the angels came to the shepherds when Jesus was born.
Yeah, and they always say that. The angel said to Mary, "Do not be afraid." And I think they said to the shepherds, "Fear not."
Right. There's a lot of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's like you don't want to scare somebody. And you'll say, "I'm in here," or I'll do that sometimes where I don't want to startle somebody.
Uh-huh.
It's like you want to soften it a bit. But I do feel like the angels are always there to announce things. I think that you're right. The angels were softening what was going to happen because, when you and I were doing our little pre-interview thing, I was saying, if that stone had not been moved, they would have just not pursued that.
Right.
Let's put it this way. If you were to have buried your father
Mm-hmm.
in the ground and his tombstone's there,
Right.
and then you go back the next day to visit the grave,
Right.
and in mourning, in the morning, you're in grief, and you go, and the stone is moved or the dirt is moved, you'd pursue it.
Right.
But you wouldn't dig a hole and make sure that the casket is in the ground.
Yeah.
You would just leave it.
Yeah.
So the fact that they get there and they're thinking, wait a second, what's happening here? Just again, putting ourselves in their shoes, kind of like we did with the Holy Week episode where we were saying, putting yourself in the shoes of people for the crucifixion. Same with the resurrection.
I do think that as humans, we want to understand things in the most logical way. And you could see in the gospel that you just read that they immediately started justifying and coming up with excuses that, they came in the night and they moved the stone. But obviously there's way too much to orchestrate for that to have happened. But they still tried to explain this away because it was so unbelievable.
Right. So I do agree with you about, their unbelief. Honestly, they're all in shock from him being killed in the way he was killed.
Mm-hmm.
I would think they're very traumatized. I would think they're very exhausted. I was thinking the other day when we were talking about the Blessed Mother going through all this with her son and how horrific to go through it with anybody, but it's your beautiful child. And, even though he's a 33-year-old man, that's her child.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, she must have just been so exhausted, so emotionally exhausted, that I'm sure she just collapsed in trauma and grief. So I feel like all of them who love Jesus so much, and I think there was moments of, they had that guilt of like, we abandoned him, we weren't there for him, and then this happened, and now he's not here, and he's dead, and he's in the tomb. Their heads must have just been spinning.
Well, I think they were, like you said, they were in shock, but they were also afraid. I think they were afraid that this was going to happen to them. And so I think they were in hiding.
Right.
They're on the run here.
Right. So then I when I was kind of thinking about this episode, I was thinking, I also find it really fascinating that there's like these 4 stories in the Bible after he resurrects. They're not quite sure what's going on.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I think these stories, there's 4 different ones, and they have to do with the apostles, the disciples, not recognizing Jesus.
Right. Yes.
And so I think that I'm not Charles Merritt and I'm not Deacon Don, but I'm just thinking just from a Lori Balderas point of view of, I'm curious to know why they didn't know that it was him.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure one of those gentlemen will have the answer to that.
Mm.
And we'll have to ask. But I do think, Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb and she even starts speaking to Jesus, and she thinks he's a gardener. And she's like, "Sir, do you know where they put my Lord?"
Right. And I do think that this is a very purposeful thing. It's obvious that God shielded their eyes from recognizing them for a very specific reason. And I think that, again, I'm not a theologian either, but my guess is that he wanted them to also have a spiritual awakening as opposed to some physical recognition. Oh, there's Jesus.
Right away.
Right. They needed to have their eyes opened by God specifically. So
it also makes me wonder, this is a very juvenile way of looking at this possibly, but it also makes me, because, well, before we dissect this too much, so there's Mary Magdalene, that happens, and Jesus, she thinks he's a gardener.
Right.
Then there's the 2 gentlemen that are walking on the road to Emmaus, and Jesus shows up and starts asking them questions about what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And are you the only one that doesn't know what's going on?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's when Jesus shows up where all the apostles are, and they're all just traumatized, and he just comes through the door,
Mm-hmm.
and they think he's a ghost.
Right.
Okay. And then he breaks bread with them, and they realize it's Jesus. And of course, Thomas isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they tell Thomas, and Thomas, doubting Thomas, doesn't believe and says, I need to, see the holes in his hands and feet and put my hand into his side, which he does later.
Mm-hmm.
Then he believes. And then there is Jesus shows up on the shore when they're out fishing, and he yells out, "Did you catch anything?" "No." He says, "Throw your net over the side." They do, and they get an abundance of fish. Okay.
That particular instance, I just find so interesting because think about it. Christ just died. This is a traumatic, crazy event that happened just the day before or 3 days ago, right? And so what do? They just go, they don't know what to do with themselves. So they say, let's go fishing.
Now they're saying, well, we were following him for 3 years. Now I guess we need to go back to our jobs.
Yeah.
I think that's what they did.
Okay. Well, I find it interesting that
they were like, well, we're not following Christ anymore, so we have to get back to work and fish, because that's what they were doing when he found them.
Right. I don't know. It just
You just thought they were out fishing, like on a leisurely
no,
fishing trip?
because I mean, they just spent 3 years out of work, Laura.
Right.
So now I think they just didn't know what to do with themselves, and they're afraid. And what better place to be so they wouldn't get caught in the ocean or in the sea where nobody could really see them? I mean, and that's what their wheelhouse was fishing. So they just said, "Come on, guys, let's go fishing."
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So all those incidences to me is like, I wonder, here's my part I was going to say from a simplistic idea. Just this is my own thought. I wonder if he wanted to see what they would say. You know how we have this thing where what if, if you could be invisible and you could see what people are saying about you, or you could have pretend that you're somebody else, like people will disguise themselves,
Right.
find out what people are saying. So I just wonder, like, because he's asking them, what's going on? What's the matter?
Right.
He wants to hear what they're saying. That's what I think. He wants to see, like, where, do they believe? I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm saying that's what I think is part of it, where he wants to kind of see what their thought process is. Where are they? They're not going, oh, he was horrible. Oh, we don't believe in him. Even Mary Magdalene, where she says, do you know where my Lord is? She's like desperate, so, and then it's made known to them that it's him.
Right. I do think that everything was completed when Christ died on the cross. But when he came back, he still had some work to do with the guys.
Yeah.
He had to make sure.
Guys and gals.
Guys and gals. He had to make sure that they were understanding things properly.
Right.
I mean, he was here for quite some time. And he also had to impart to them some power.
Right.
That's what Pentecost is about.
Right.
He had to give them this authority, this power. And he says, hey, guys, this is how you're going to structure this new thing and go out and start bringing people to this faith.
Right. Put a pin in that, because there's another part of the Bible I want to read because it goes along with this. And I just found this very interesting. And this goes along with what we're saying. So this is from Mark 16, 9 through 16. So I just think this is interesting. The appearance to Mary Magdalene. When he had risen early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had driven 7 demons. She went and told his companions, who were mourning and weeping. When they heard that he was alive and had been seen by her, they did not believe. After this, he appeared in another form to 2 of them walking along on their way to the country. They returned and told the others, but they did not believe them either. Later, as the 11 were at table, he appeared to them and rebuked them for their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they had not believed those who saw him after he had been raised. He said to them, "Go into the whole world and proclaim the gospel to every creature. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. Whoever does not believe will be condemned." That's intense.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm saying that and reading that is because, like we were just saying, people didn't believe. Even though he was there and people were saying, "Come, look, he's here, he's alive." Thomas didn't believe. People were struggling with that. I can understand it. Again, it sounds crazy. It's like, wait a second, what are you saying?
Yeah. I would have loved to understand or see or been a fly on the wall when they did come to understand, oh my goodness, he resurrected.
Right.
And a light bulb went off. What was that like?
Right.
Moment for them.
Right.
It was each individual, different times, I'm sure.
Right.
Some together. Some.
And so as you say that, you know what that reminds me of? I just got chills. When you're called by the Lord to follow him. And there's that light bulb moment. At least I had it. Now, I know cradle Catholics have it differently. They get baptized when they're a baby. They grow up in the faith. I think it's a slower building up of relationship with him. But when the people I know, myself included, when you are in this dark place and all of a sudden you see this hand come out or a voice, like Sabrina heard a voice. Sabrina, one of our guests.
Right.
Sabrina heard an actual voice, and that happens a lot. And, or like a hand or, a nudge or just a light bulb moment. And all of a sudden, that's when God is saying, come to me. Or like Sabrina heard, come home, or you're home. I mean, that's how it's always been.
Yeah.
It's the same today.
Yeah, that makes sense. I buy that.
But back then, it's like, not only did they have the pleasure of actually being with him for 3 years, how amazing that would have been, but then when he shows up, and it's right afterward, it's him. It's this person that they love and that they lost, or they thought they lost.
Right.
And then he's back. So today, there's so much more noise and distractions, like we've talked about, where you might not notice that the hand is coming out to you or that the voice is calling to you.
Yeah, I think that we are all called in some way. I don't think that modern times prevent that calling to be heard. I think there's a lot of, just like throughout history, a lot of people just choose not to answer the call.
Right. True. That's true. Yeah. I'm not surprised at their unbelief. I know he wasn't real happy about that, but then I think then everything changed.
Right.
Many people saw him.
Yeah.
So you kind of can't discount it. I know people have tried, to say, oh, this is a hoax. Oh, he didn't come back. But I heard somewhere it was either Bishop Barron or somebody, and they were saying, you can't pull that off back then. You can't set out a group text and say, hey, we're all going to do this,
right.
this hoax.
Well, as we mentioned in our little pre-interview, that all of Christianity depends on this moment of resurrection. If he wasn't resurrected, there would be no Christianity. There would be nothing.
Right.
Right? And
he would have been a liar.
Right. He would have been a liar. He would have been...
Or a crazy person.
Yeah.
And everybody would have said, oh, we just followed a crazy person for 3 years. Oh, he's a liar. But that's not what happened, guys. That's not what happened at all. And that's why it's like flabbergasts me, the people that are just constantly trying to knock down our faith, knock down the story, knock down, this.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the most provable historical moments of all. I mean, there was eyewitness accounts that wrote in the gospel, like Mark, he wrote one of the gospels. He was there, he saw it, as opposed to, I mentioned to you, like the Buddha, for example. He lived his life and there wasn't a single thing written about him for 600 years. But people acknowledge that he existed and he's real and so forth. So all of the four gospels were written within 100 years of his life, which I think is, there's nothing else like it. There's nothing else historically documented so well.
Well, and again, I think it goes back to this that we talk about a lot, is that Jesus is a threat to non-believers and to, people who want to discount him. He's a big threat. That's why they're always trying to, undermine him, act like he didn't exist, or if he did exist, he was just a nice guy,
Right.
And I would say that these people that interacted with him personally, I believe them.
Right.
I believe them. So anyway, I just think it's all very fascinating. I do love the stories where they don't know it's him and then all of a sudden they do. And I'm with you. It's like, I would love to know how that felt when it's like all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, it's really you.
Yeah. Well, his appearance was changed. I mean, he didn't come back all bloodied and everything.
Right.
He had a resurrected body.
Right.
He did have the wounds, but I don't think he was marked up like you would, imagine what he just went through. I think he was.
Right. So, I mean, again, just kind of put yourself in those different people's spots and that is exciting in itself, just to kind of imagine it.
Right.
And so anyway, I would say, if anything, I would imagine that they felt an intense amount of relief.
Right.
joy.
Mm-hmm.
I love the word joy. If you haven't heard the joy episode from last year's Easter, it's episode 14. I went back and listened to it the other day, and it was very enjoyable. Of course, I cry in it. I cry in that episode. I did a lot of crying in season 1. I cried in the last episode, but I'm a weeper. I get very emotional about Jesus, but I think anytime I can feel joy or help other people to feel joy, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's why I get really sad when people don't want to go to Mass or follow Jesus, or they're lazy about it and they push him to the side. He just brings me so much joy and so much happiness. And in that joy episode, I discuss the differences between happiness and joy, because there's a difference.
Right.
Happiness is outside, outward things make you happy, like an award or a cup of hot cocoa. Things make you happy. But joy is inward.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that the apostles must have felt a relief.
Yeah.
Have you ever been so stressed out about something, and then all of a sudden, whatever you're stressed out about, it's lifted from you like instantly?
Yes.
Don't you feel not just the relief, but like kind of ecstatic, kind of like joyous?
Yes.
When something like that happens, I think that's what you're trying to express.
I think joy is just very deep. Happiness is outward and like fleeting. I consider happiness fleeting. It's like the hyper cousin to the peaceful joy.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
I think they felt joy. I think they felt empowered that they were right all along and that they did the right thing by following Christ. I think they needed that assurance, and he gave it to them.
Right. Well, and like we talk about, one of the reasons he came back, I believe, was to prove to them what he had said happened. Again, like if that stone had been in front of the tomb and they would have never pursued it, they would have never known if he was resurrected or not.
Right.
So that was one part. And then he showed himself to them.
Right.
And then he had work to do with them before he ascended into heaven.
He had work to do in general. I mean, when he died, he went to Sheol to let the people know that I guess, I don't know if it's like a purgatory or if it's like a hell, but to say, hey, I did this act and the gates of heaven are now open.
Pack your bags.
Yeah.
Come with me.
He had stuff to take care of.
Yes, he did.
Still.
Yes. I do feel like he had to come back and he had lots to do. And I feel like that's how it is today. In order to have peace and joy in our life, it's with him. So you were saying they were feeling relieved. And how do you feel when you are relieved? You imagine they're ecstatic.
Yeah.
I would say I need a nap. I'm exhausted. I need a joyous nap, and then wake up and then celebrate.
Right.
I would think that they would want to celebrate, but I think he had work to do. I don't see anywhere in the Bible where they celebrate. They're just happy and joyous. He's alive. They know they have things. They don't know how long he's going to be with them. They have no idea.
Yeah.
So I would say, when you don't know how long you get to be with somebody, you just want to kind of make sure you're getting everything taken care of.
Yeah. Once they realize, okay, Jesus is back, they may have thought he was going to stay forever. Who knows?
Right.
But he had to impart to them a lot of instruction.
Right.
And of course, Pentecost was a big event.
Well, and to send them out into the world.
Right.
Like he had a mission here, and then he needed to send them out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of how it is with anybody. We're only here for a brief amount of time. We have work to do. And then we need to feed our family, feed our children, feed our grandchildren, feed the people around us to carry this on. We can't just let it die. That's why I'm so encouraged when I go to Mass every morning and there's now all these children there. That gives me such hope because those parents are bringing their small children to keep it going. We got to keep it going.
Right.
You can't just say, well, it's an elderly congregation, and once they go, then our church dies.
Right.
We don't want that.
Right.
So it's very encouraging to me, and we got to keep it going. So like that's what Jesus did with the apostles, was like, okay, this is what you guys are going to do. I'm going to give you the authority. And then I love the passages where when they do go out and they're performing miracles, they're not taking the credit for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a whole other episode to talk about, because I love the Acts of the Apostles. That I love that. I love St. Paul. I think he's amazing. But you know, they're continuing on Jesus's mission. They're spreading the news. They're spreading everything, but they're not taking credit for it.
No.
And that's what I believe you have to do when you really want to be a true disciple of Christ.
Right.
It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about him. It's all about him.
Yeah. They had to be empowered to do his work through him, not through themselves, of course.
Well, and I think, like, I'm just going to turn this a little bit towards this Fresh Catholic that we're doing. You know, the reason I started this a little over a year ago was to draw people back to Christ or to him. And I love him so much, and I love being Catholic so much that I just am like busting at the seams about it. And I know there's some people that think I'm doing this for you know, to shine a light on me. I'm not. If whoever knows me really knows me, especially you know me, because you know how important this is to me. I'm only using the gifts that I have, and you're using the gifts you have for us to do this, because this is a platform we can use.
Right.
So it's the same thing with Father Mike Schmitz, with Bishop Barron, and other people that are on social media or are on, you know, have their podcasts. God bless them.
Yeah.
Building up the kingdom. Nobody's doing it for their own glory. So let's be real clear about that.
Right.
And so I think that's the same thing with when Jesus came back and he's, you know, getting everybody to go out and continue on the mission. That's what I'm trying to do today.
Yeah.
You know, it's been passed down all the way down. I know it seems, to me at least, it seems depressing sometimes when I think everybody's so anti-church, anti-Jesus, all these things. That breaks my heart. But I think there's a lot of people out there, and you and I joke, not joke, Catholics are very polite.
Yeah.
They don't cause a ruckus. They don't cause a big to-do. But we're very strong, and there's a lot of us. It's just we're not on a bullhorn.
Yeah.
We're not on Mr. Bullhorn. We do a lot of praying. It's a lot of internal. But I think we're all trying to, the Catholics I know, are trying to continue on what Jesus started. Continue on. If not, what was it all for? It can't just die out. It's not going to die out, because it's just not.
No.
But people are trying to snuff it out, but it's not going to work, because we're strong. We're the strong, silent type. Let's put that on a shirt.
Yeah, I like that.
Catholics, strong, silent types.
That's funny.
Anyway, but back to joy really quick.
Yep.
And then we're going to head out. Again, I encourage you to listen to episode 14, because it really is the epitome of what I want to say, what I feel. And I think it's a really perfect episode for this time of year. And I even said to you this morning, maybe we'll just put it, you know, whatever you call it.
Reuse
it. But then we opted to do this. But that being said, I really do encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. And I hope that you're feeling lots of joy in your hearts and in your minds and in your souls at this time of year. We made it through Lent. Let's make this a beautiful Easter season. Let's keep the goodness, kindness in our hearts, service to others. Let's come up with something. You know, I just did the Fresh Catholic 40. If you're on social media, you definitely saw my daily videos giving ideas for a productive Lent. I'm not doing that for Easter. I'm not doing 50 days of whatever, but continue watching my social media. I try to have positive things on there. I'll come up with something for the Easter season, but you know, let's all just keep this mission going for Christ. I mean, he went through so much. And then his promises, he followed through on his promises. I mean, if you're open and willing to take him into your heart and your soul, there's miracles in store for you. there are miracles in store for you, and your life will be so much more joyful. It isn't easy, like I've said before, to be a follower of Christ. It's just not. And he doesn't claim that it's going to be. Take up your cross and follow me.
Right.
Leave everything to follow me.
Mm-hmm. It's a big ask.
He means it.
Right.
And he's very sweet and kind, but he's also very firm because he loves us so much.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want us to drop off and fall by the wayside or allow Satan to choke us and drag us off. So, let's use this Easter season to come out of that cave, come out of that tomb, be a bright, shiny penny, be a bright light to all that you encounter, draw people to Christ by your life and your goodness and his bright light shining out from you.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Have a beautiful first week of the Easter season. Thank you. Love you. Bye. Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh. Fresh Catholic is produced, edited, and recorded in Ventura, California.